This is the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritchner. Your home for college basketball in the Cincinnati area and across the country every Monday through Friday during the season. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Great to be joined today by Cole Adams. And Cole, you've really made a name for yourself on social media, the way that you've really promoted the game over the last couple of seasons. It's been fun following you. And as it relates to the rundown, you're a Southwest Ohio guy. You're up there in Dayton. So
Yes,
we're
sir.
going to talk today about Dayton. We're going to talk about Wright State and then get a couple of thoughts maybe on the overall college basketball picture this season. Cole, thanks for joining the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We met at the Xavier game over the weekend for first time. Now we follow each other on Twitter, so we know each other from that. But I'm born and raised Beaver Creek, went to Wright State, grew up liking Dayton basketball. So excited to talk about both those schools. Wish some of them were on better terms, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so we'll start with Dayton, and I think that's a great point that you lead into the segment with about wishing it was on better terms, because right now things are not going well. Dayton's on the heels of a 3-game losing streak. They go to St. Louis on Friday night, which is one of the toughest, probably the toughest game in the conference is to go to St. Louis this year. Dayton, they had skated by. They were 5-0 in the A10. They lose a couple games in Philly. Then they come home, and it feels like rock bottom. You were at the game.
Oh, yeah.
They lose to Archie Miller. Tell me about it. Tell me about it, Cole.
Yeah, that was just a really, really low point for the program. 2020, obviously everybody knows that. Since then, it's just been up and down. You would get a good season where they would go to the NCAA tournament in 2024, but then they would miss the NCAA tournament. That's been the problem with Dayton. They can't seem to win their conference tournament. That's been like the real, like, everybody points that out whenever you talk about UD. I mean, they haven't won it since like the early 2000s. But last night, man, that was really disappointing. I mean, fans were leaving at like like not even, we hadn't even hit the under 4, and the game is still within reach, and it ended up going to overtime. But that was just a really embarrassing loss. Rhode Island had a lot of guys that weren't playing. In fact, Dayton was like trapping them instantly. Like they forced, if I remember, I think they forced 5 10-second violations. I mean, it's just, you don't really see a loss like that if you're doing something like that. So the fact they ended up losing that game, it just was a low point. I mean, even like after the game, Juwan Simon was talking about how they just felt lost out there. Anthony Grant in the post game was talking about how that loss really just falls on him, and he didn't have his guys ready. And I mean, that's very clear with this group. I think that they came into this season, they're not like a great offensive team. Guys that were expected to be good, like Emil Latong, just has not played well. I mean, he was projected to be a second-round draft pick coming into this year. I mean, like, you could find legit mock drafts that had him as a second-round pick, and that's just not even going to happen at this point. So it's just been really disappointing. I mean, they've still had some like injuries that have happened kind of recently where they still just don't have their rotations down. That's clear watching them last night. They're just so lost offensively. They don't know what to do. And, it's unacceptable. I mean, Dayton's a program that they draw the most in the A10. This should not be the type of basketball that we watch. I mean, they still get a great crowd. The fans want to support the school, obviously. Nobody wants us to just give up on the season. Basketball means a lot here. So it's really frustrating right now. I mean, anybody that watches them play, everybody should expect better than what we saw last night. Last night was really just the lowest point I've seen for Dayton basketball in a very long time.
So when you see a team like Dayton right now struggling, and also to me, Cole, it feels like they're just, and I used this on the rundown the other day, feels like they're spinning their tires in mud. And
yeah, for
you're
sure.
trying, you're trying, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing over and over again. And at the end of the season, you're going to have to decide for yourself, do you want to do another year of this with Anthony Grant, or do you decide maybe this is the best time for him to retire and you try to find some new life? It just feels like this whole thing has kind of run its course.
Yeah, run its course is a good way to put it, honestly. It's tough because Anthony did, incredible things for Dayton, and he's an alum of the school. So it's just such a touchy topic, especially amongst like the real, like, Dayton supporters, and then the huge basketball fans. Like, we're kind of experiencing a little bit of like a for lack of better word, like a civil war amongst the fan base, because some people really support Anthony, and I'm one of those people. But it's like at the end of the day, I want to watch good basketball. That comes before anything, and that's definitely not the product we're seeing on the court right now. And it's frustrating to see. I would agree with you when it comes to running its course. Uh, I don't know what type of hire they would make if they were to move on from Anthony per se. Uh, so it's just kind of like we're really in the unknown right now, which is frustrating because just a few years ago things were just going so well.
Well, we keep using the word frustrating because when you look at the schedule the rest of the way for Dayton, if you lose to LaSalle and then you win the next couple of games and you look at the opportunities, you still have to, play VCU, you have to play George Mason, you have to play St. Louis twice. Like the opportunities are still there to
Yeah,
rectify a weird loss like that. Problem is, then you lose again in Philadelphia, then you lose at home. Now there's no doubt about it. You have to win the A10 tournament. And like you said earlier, Cole,
it's just something. Yeah,
they
they
don't
don't
do
do that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just really frustrating right now to be a Dayton fan, especially seeing like, for example, St. Louis get it turned around completely. After moving on from Travis Ford, they hired Josh Schertz, and his first year didn't go as perfect as people were projecting. I mean, he brought over some guys from Indiana State. People expected them to be really good. They weren't right away, but already in year two, they're the best team. Clearly, they've only lost one game, which they shouldn't have lost. They should be undefeated. So it's just frustrating to see like a program like that, or even like VCU, for example, who just continues to bring in new coaches every single year, and they're always still competitive. And then even with George Mason, they've just been really solid under Tony's skin. So that's where I'm like, all right, maybe it actually might really be time to make some sort of move here.
All right, let's go over to the other team in Dayton, Wright State, and they've been playing exceptionally well in the
Yeah, they have.
Horizon League this season. They drop a game last week to Cleveland State, a weird midweek game, and
Yeah.
things just didn't go their way. But then they come back, they force a ton of turnovers against Northern Kentucky and blitz them really in the first half, and then
Yeah.
carry that in through the second half and win the game. Give me your impressions of Wright State so far this season, Cole.
Yeah, I think that amongst being like my friends, we talk about Wright State all the time, and I think that we're really excited. I feel like this is like the one year where we're actually like, okay, we've moved on from our old head coach, the new staff, which is a lot of the same guys that were already there. I think that they've done a good job of playing like a different style of basketball, which is something that we kind of wanted to see. We've become better defensively, which you obviously saw against Northern Kentucky. And then also something to mention about Wright State is our two best players. So Michael Cooper, he's our best player as a freshman, and then Kellen Pickett, who has stepped up a lot because Cooper got hurt. He's also a freshman. So I feel like we have a lot of room to grow, especially during the month of February. Once they kind of learn how to play with each other, because Cooper really did well with, like obviously he was our leading scorer, but then when he got hurt his hand. Kellen Pickett stepped up big time, especially as like a defender and scoring, and they haven't really like played together that much. So that's where I'm kind of expecting like during the month of February, they kind of learn how to play with each other. I think they've obviously looked like the best team in the Horizon League. And if they just continue to keep growing as a team, I think that there's really high hopes that they could win our conference tournament. I've been satisfied watching them just play basketball. It's exciting to have like two really, really star freshmen succeed for us. So yeah.
Yeah, and especially, at the mid-major level where you're trying to compete, you're trying to get some freshmen, you're trying to
Yeah,
retain some of that talent too. To have that in the program's
exactly.
got to feel good.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that that's what's so interesting is you see a lot of, mid-major schools, like, in the Horizon League bring in transfers and, they kinda rely on older guys, where for us, I feel like we've got really young players that we don't even really know what their potential is. So that's where I'm, like, kind of, even if we've lost a game to Cleveland State that was disappointing, I'm still really excited to see just, what our potential could even be because, some guys haven't really played with each other like Michael and Kellen. So it's going to be interesting to see how kind of like they mesh together going forward. Uh, I'm very excited. Like probably the most excited I've been as a Wright State fan since we had like Loud and Love, and we were going to the tournament in 2022. That was like kind of like our peak. So I think that we could be a pretty sneaky, like we're projected if we win our conference tournament, obviously, be like a 15 seed, a 14 seed, especially if Michael and Kellen continue to play really well because they both have won Horizon League Freshman of the Year a couple times. So it's like, who knows, Paul? But
That's right. Who
obviously, it
knows?
all comes down to winning the conference tournament. That's the most important thing.
Let's look around the country now. A couple more questions for you, Cole, before I let you go. You're somebody that to me, I think has endeared yourself to the college basketball community because of your positivity and trying to build up the game. And I think we all know college basketball is a fairly niche sport, but
Yeah.
those of us who love it really
Oh,
love
yeah.
it and really care about it. And that's something that you have taken it upon yourself to really promote. So I think two of the best stories in college basketball are two stories that we've covered pretty closely here on the rundown. I sat down with Josh Schertz before the season. I've
Yeah.
known Travis Steele for years, dating back to his time at Xavier. So St. Louis and Miami have become near and dear to the rundown's heart this year. And
Oh,
Miami's
yeah.
certainly one of the best stories in college basketball. Those two teams are very fun. You have any comments on the Billikens or the Red Hawks?
Yeah, the Billikens, man, they're a really fun team. I'm excited to see what type of seed they would get. I feel like they'll get an at large. I believe so if they slip up in, let's say, the conference tournament. So I'm excited to see what they could be because I think their ceiling is really high. In fact, on Ryan Hammer's trapezoid of excellence, they were like right on the outside of it. Which, if you're inside that, that means you are like a title contender, honestly. So that was cool to see. Now for Miami, they just keep winning, man. They played just such chaotic games, especially as of recently. That's been exciting. But I want to sneak in another team real quick when we're talking about the MAC because I was looking at Ken Palm this morning and Akron, John Gross, Travis Steele's brother, really flying under the radar. So they're ranked currently, I think, on Ken Palm number 53, which is extremely high for a mid-major school like Akron. That's the highest they've ever been. I mean, they were kind of tracking around like the 100 range when they were making the NCAA tournaments appearances those seasons. So I'm excited to see what we see with the MAC tournament because let's just say Akron and Miami play for that title game. That could be an incredible basketball game.
I think you're exactly right. And I think at that point it's going to depend on how many losses Miami has. I mean,
Yeah.
let's just play the game, Cole, and let's just have some fun here and say they do go undefeated and get into the conference tournament without a blemish. If they play Akron in the title game, I don't think it's I really don't. And some people listening might say I am crazy. I don't think it's crazy to say at that point that the MAC is a two-bid league.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If Akron wins the title, I don't know how you keep Miami out with just that mass accumulation of wins. I think you would have to put them in maybe in Dayton as an 11 seed
Oh
or a
yeah.
12 seed.
Yeah,
But
for
like,
sure. I mean, we might see a 12 seed. I was talking about it last night. Like, let's say George Mason continues to play really well, and they could get an at large. Maybe they'll give us a 12-12 in the first four. We've seen some weird ones. I mean, 2024, we had 10 seeds, which we'd never seen before
yeah,
playing each other. So you never know kind of how that will shake out. But I do think that Miami could potentially be an at large team. I think the story has gotten so big now that a lot of people are really gravitating towards it when just as a neutral observer. Like I've been looking at social media impressions they've been getting just from like the big companies like ESPN, for example, just talking about them. I mean, people are really, really like interested in this. So I just feel like it'd be a disservice to the sport to just not include them into the first four if they were to slip up and lose in their conference tournament.
yeah. All right. One more story, Cole. I'm going to leave the door open for you. Is there anything that has stuck out to you from the college basketball season this year? Fun things you're looking at down the stretch? Anything that kind of catches your eye here as we get into February?
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I've been impressed by Nebraska. I think they're a really, really good basketball team, and they almost won last night at Michigan without their second and third leading scorers, which it's like that just shows how good they are. In fact, they moved up in the title odds. So that means a lot because, if that number moves, that means people in Vegas believe in them, obviously. So that's good to see. That's just a story that I've been really fascinated by. But I mean, I'll be interested to see if maybe we get a Big Ten champion this year. That's something that has not happened since 2000, I believe, with Michigan State. So that's like, if we see Indiana football go and win a national championship, and the past three national champions in college football, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio State, all from Big Ten. When will we get a Big Ten champion? I know that's kind of in our area. So that might be, that's a story that's kind of really starting to kind of interest me as we move along. So yeah.
Cole, I know you're trying to build your following in the college basketball world, so tell the people where they can find you and listen to you.
All right. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Cole Adams. Especially if you follow like Paul, you'll find me around there. And then I have a YouTube channel. You can just search my name, Cole Adams, and you'll find me. So thank you, Paul, for having me on today, man. Really, really appreciate it.
It was great to meet you over the weekend, and
Yeah.
maybe down the line here in February or getting into March, we can check in again about Dayton and Wright State. I'm going to try and get to the Horizon League tournament this year. It's going to be
Awesome.
kind of a crazy championship week, but I'm going to try and get there and do some coverage there and then bounce around. So maybe at some point down the line, we'll see each other again.
I'm sure we will, Paul. I'm sure we will.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cole.
All right. Thanks, Paul.